The journey of dementia caregiving is rarely a straight path. It's a winding road, often marked by unexpected detours and emotional turbulence. The sense of overwhelming chaos, where routines crumble and emotions surge, can become a constant companion. The weight of endless tasks, coupled with the unpredictable nature of dementia, creates a breeding ground for caregiver exhaustion. This persistent chaos not only steals the joy from daily life, but also jeopardizes the caregiver's own mental and physical health. Building on our previous conversation, this second part delves deeper into strategies to dismantle this chaos and cultivating a lasting calm. It's about recognizing that peace isn't a destination, but a practice. We'll explore practical techniques for managing stress, fostering moments of connection amidst the challenges, and we'll further explore resources and support systems, emphasizing that seeking help is not a sign of weakness, but a vital step towards creating a sustainable caregiver experience. So let's move beyond simply surviving and discover how to thrive even amidst the complexities of dementia care. Welcome to Fading Memories. Thanks for tuning in once again, Fading Memories listeners. I'm Jen Fink, your host. Today we are talking about From Chaos to Calm. This is kind of part two. If you haven't heard the first episode, you're okay. You can listen to this one and then go back to that one. With me is Debbie of the Purple Vine, and I am going to let her introduce herself because she does so many things. I don't want to mangle any of the fantastic things she does for caregivers. So welcome back, Debbie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Well, I am the founder of The Purple Vine, and my mission is to empower caregivers to reduce their stress, block burnout, and learn to laugh again. Because that last one is so important. We can get so bogged down in all the negativity around us that we forget to laugh. And laughter is where we find our strength. So I'm also an international best-selling author. This last one, The Caregiver's Advocate, was number one in Canada, number one in the US in all 6 categories, number one in Australia, and top 50 in the UK. So I'm super excited about that. And we are currently working on volume 2, getting ready to start, of The Caregiver's Advocate, because it has real world strategies. I am all about giving caregivers strategies and action tools and things that they can put to use. There's enough fluff out there. We need support. And so that's what I'm for. I'm for support. I do one-on-one caregiver Zooms, a Zoom call where they can talk to me, share whatever their issues are, and I can help them find answers, solutions that work for their situation. And the Zoom calls are perfect because you don't have to get your loved one up and dressed and around and out the door. All you have to do is schedule it when they normally take a nap, or have someone come over and watch a TV show with them and talk at that point in time. So, and then I do speeches and I do trainings and workshops and whatever's needed. It's just, to sum it all up, it's just caregiver support. That's me.
Well, me too. And I started out, for those who might be new around here, I was caring for my mom after my dad passed away, and all of the traditional advice, air quotes for the non YouTube watchers, just we failed
Hmm.
spectacularly. And a lot of it, was like, well, you have to enter their reality. Okay, how do I do that? Like I'm a creative person, but I'm also like very rational. Like, what reality, like I didn't know that she could be in a different decade, different year. All I knew is she thought I was her best friend. Maybe that should have been a clue. But yeah, it was the lack of, you know, almost step by step advice. I know we can't really do that because everybody's different, but yeah, it was. That's
That's
why.
exactly That's exactly how I got into this, because I cared for dad with Parkinson's and my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's, and then my mom with vascular dementia. And so I was studying and researching and asking questions and trying to learn all these different forms of dementia and learn what to do. And the things that were listed, oftentimes, actually the majority of the time, did not work for me. So we had to create things that did. And so that's what I share. And I never say this is the solution for that, because we don't know that. You can try this, but we're all different. We're all individuals. And so it might work for you today. It might work today and tomorrow. It might only work for an hour. It might not work at all. We just don't know. So I give you lots of options. Try this, try that. And hopefully something will work. And if it doesn't, come back to me. We'll try some more things. So,
That was probably easier than starting a whole podcast, but talking to people like you has been very fun, and I'm still learning really good caregiving practices. And right now, my caregiving is just for a 10 and a half year old golden retriever who doesn't know that she's 10 and a half.
mm, mm-hmm.
She's extremely social, extremely intelligent. So if you, like me, are very cognizant of brain health, you know, I can only do so much for the husband. So I worry about, the dog spent 8.5 years of her life with at least one, if not two other golden retrievers. And then we lost our younger one, and I became very acutely aware that she was bored, not necessarily lonely, but bored. And that's not good. Fortunately, she's not destructive, but it's not fair for her to be bored. So we do things like yesterday we went on a 4 mile walkish hike. It's a flat hike. And she goes, we call it free range hiking because she can be off leash in this particular area. And she
Great.
sniffs and she explores and she trots ahead and looks over her shoulder and waits for you. I mean, it's just, there's so much more activity going on in her brain, her little doggy brain.
And that's great for you too. It's exercise for you, which helps your brain health. So it's perfect. Win-win.
And you talked about laughing. It's just really funny as you get a little curve in the trail and she'll stop and she's looking over her shoulder like, I know they're coming. If I get too far ahead, they're gonna put me back on that leash. And
Are you still with me?
yeah, I'm like, hurry it up, peoples.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes you smile. And it makes you smile every time. And it's like, oh, man, I feel like a simpleton because this dog is making me laugh all the time.
Oh, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Laughter reduces stress, increases endorphins. It's good for you. You're doing it right.
Well, for those people who have more significant caregiving responsibilities other than a fluffy golden retriever, trust me, she's a lot easier than my mom was. Where should we start on part 2 of our going from chaos to calm? Because right now life feels very chaotic.
I think one thing starting off that caregivers can do to simplify their life is to create a routine, a daily routine, and try to keep meals at about the same time every day because it's amazing. Even though your loved one is disoriented and may not know what's happening, they get used to that set routine and it brings them comfort. And so then when they're comforted, your job's going to be easier. So creating that routine really will help the two of you kind of settle in. And it doesn't mean, even when I say that, I'm a big proponent of taking them on a trip, that taking your loved one out and letting them go somewhere, experience new things, see new things. So don't be married to the routine. And you can try to keep the routine as close as possible, even when you're traveling. If they have particular snacks that they like, take them with you. Things that bring them comfort, take it with you. It's all about being prepared. But you can still enjoy life, have great adventures, and still keep that routine as much the same as possible to generate the calm.
Routines are kind of good for us in general. Eating about the same time keeps you from getting overly hungry and eating garbage you shouldn't eat. Back to the dog. He will look at you at about 6 o'clock, like, excuse you, but it is 6:03. Where is
Yes.
food?
Yes.
But with my mom, I found the one engagement that was easiest and most successful with her was taking her out wherever we could go watch children. We go to the park, we go to the pool, sometimes we go to the library. We did try McDonald's play place once, but I think we were there before school let out, or else those aren't that popular because there were 0 children.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say if you go when it's super crowded, it can be a bad thing too, because then there's just so much chaos. But if you can go and find just a few kids, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of thought we'd get like the younger kids waiting for the older siblings to get out of school, but I don't know, our timing was off, something. I did have her friend, other Diane, for people who've listened regularly. They will know or remember that my mom's name was Diane. She befriended Diane Stewart, and they befriended Diane Rubinsky.
Oh, how funny. The three
Hence,
Dianes.
yes. And if you ask my mom where her friend Diane was, you ended up in that Laurel and Hardy skit, Dementia version.
Oh,
So yeah, I just referred to him as other Diane and other Diane because it was crazy. And it was funny. We had Diane S and Diane R. It was just hysterical. But mom always seemed to have just like, and I could have been projecting, but she just seemed like a little bit, ever so slightly more cognitively brighter
mhm.
when because we would be out, if you're out at the pool or the park, or, you're out in nature, you're getting fresh air, you're getting sunshine, watching the kids. So she was getting out of the memory care residence. It was definitely beneficial. Getting her from the car to a bench was not so much fun because she watched her feet while she walked, and she
My
walked
mom too.
10 to 15 feet behind me, which
Oh.
was terrifying because I could not, in any stretch of the imagination, convince her to walk with me, next to me, in front of me. No, it was always behind me. And it was always significantly behind me. And I was always afraid
Mm.
she'd face plant on the sidewalk. And I would be the evil monster because I didn't let her catch up and I was being inconsiderate. And it was just like I could see and hear all the judgment that was going to happen. Thankfully it didn't happen. And after she passed away, another past guest that's been on a couple of times thought about it, and she goes, "Didn't you tell me your mom was the oldest of four?" I'm like, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, that's why she walked behind you. She was watching the kids." And I'm like, "Well, now you tell me."
Ah,
And that was kind of the whole entry on
yeah.
her reality that I was never good at. So,
It's hard sometimes to figure out where they're at and what's happening. And I was fortunate in that because I could loop my arm through mom's arm if I started humming a song or singing a little song or playing music, because then we'd like dance along as we went. And that would help her to go faster
mm.
because she would just, I called her, she walked so slow, because she just kept getting slower and slower. And so I started calling her Pokemon, just teasing her. And I'm like, come on, Pokemon, And but if I put music on, she'd speed up and she would go quicker and she'd just do a little jig while we're walking. So man, I had music going, Johnny Cash, Chubby Checker, all that kind of stuff, music that she loved, that she related to. So, and that's part of entering their reality too. The things that they enjoyed, like when they're in their 20s, that's typically the kind of music that they absolutely love and that resonates with them. And so if you're having trouble connecting with that loved one or seeing that spark in their eye anymore, you hit on the perfect thing. Is it does stimulate their brain. Get them out, get them somewhere else. Then when you're outside, you've got the additional benefits of grounding, especially, and this is most of the time not possible, so I understand that. But if it is possible for your loved one, take their shoes off and let them stand in the grass barefoot. It's fantastic for the body, grounds the body and the mind, and helps bring in that calm. So, but again, it just depends on your person. That worked for my dad, not for my mom or my mother-in-law. Wouldn't happen. But, you work with what you've got. There are ways to work with what you have. And my mother-in-law loved being outside, and then she got to where she couldn't walk anymore. So I would put her in the wheelchair and we'd still go for a walk. And she was always cold, so I'd toss a little blanket over her and off we go. So we walked all over the place and it was great, giving her the fresh air, the change of scenery, watching the kids play outside, all the things. So just work with what you have. Dad, I'd sit on the swing with him, and then we'd walk around the block, and then we'd sit on the swing outside again because that's what he enjoyed. So,
I could do that. So you were talking about you played music to get your mom to walk quicker. Music
yes,
was one of those just guaranteed ways of engaging with your loved one. You just had to find the right songs. My
yes.
mom liked talk TV shows and talk radio. Music
Oh,
did not do it. And I was
really?
terrified to play her like my podcast because I didn't want her to know we were talking
Yeah.
about her or
I,
Alzheimer's. And she was far enough advanced that I wasn't sure that she'd even connect. with anything
Mhm.
else. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, I think if I just played them, she would have just like the rhythmic, melodic
Mhm.
sounds of speaking probably would have been really soothing. Not that she wasn't really aggressive or agitated most of the time until you made her angry, which thankfully didn't happen too often. But it, I think that would have helped. And it's
Yeah,
just another one of those things. It's like you get so invested in what is supposed to work that you
right.
forget to think about what they liked when they were, like my mom would literally turn the TV on in the master bedroom and the TV on in the family room and go about her day taking care of the house. And, us kids would be at school, but when we'd come home, that's how she ran her day. And I'm like, I do the same thing. I turn on podcasts and listen to podcasts
Mhm.
while I do my things. I'm like, okay, I just have the modern version of what mom did. It's so funny. But yeah, getting into their reality is not as complicated as people make it think. It's just you have to like
Right.
almost forget who they are now and think about who they were then.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is because my mother-in-law just loved the Perry Mason. She loved Perry Mason. We had to do some digging, but we finally found Perry Mason DVDs and bought those to put them on for her. So that way it's like Perry Mason on demand, whenever you need it, you got it. And so we had those DVDs that we would play and she'd watch that and she just loved it, that and westerns. And my mom and my dad both loved westerns. And sometimes when you're talking about the TV, a thing that we need to watch sometimes, because we were noticing some fearful behavior in my dad and just starting to worry about everything. And then I got to realizing that he was watching the news a lot and it was scaring him and it was just getting in there and and you'd hear about a bombing overseas somewhere and dad would think they're bombing us and it's right here. Because he couldn't connect all the information and couldn't keep it all, so whatever was going on in the world he thought it was in his neighborhood,
Mm.
and so it was very fearful. So we had to do some adjusting on that and occupy him at different times when the news would be on. Instead of him sitting there watching the news at that time of day, we'd watch something else, put a movie on or something like that.
I know there are particular streaming services, or at least services for people living with some form of dementia.
Right.
Nia TV is one of them.
Yes.
And so that would probably be a benefit because then you don't have to like, I'm flying out of the kitchen into the living room to turn off the
Yeah.
news. Because good
If
Lord, the news
they
could be really bad anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. But that didn't work for dad because it felt condescending to him.
Mm.
And so he didn't like it. But I could put on a Western. So that would be fine. And then he could, he'll watch John Wayne movies till forever. So, it's just figuring out what your person likes and what they enjoy and give them what they enjoy. And that's one of the best things that caregivers can do is learn your person. Learn what TV shows they like, learn what snacks they like, everything about them, because one day they won't be able to convey that information. And if you know it, it's going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to reduce the stress because my mother-in-law would come in and she's digging around in the pantry looking for something. And so I'm like, can I help you? What are you trying to find? And she says, that, you know. Oh, gosh, okay. I've got a whole pantry full of stuff here. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, could you narrow it down? Sweet, savory,
Yeah, yeah. And
wet.
And that's where I finally learned pictures, and I'd show her a picture of, Pringles. Nope, that's not it. Okay, show her a picture of Bugles. Nope, pictures of all the different things. Is this what you want? Is this what you want? Until she finally says yes, and then that's the snack. This is what she's after. So, because she was very determined, and she's the one with Alzheimer's. And so it created a very short switch in her that she never had before. But with Alzheimer's, she did. And if I couldn't figure out what it was she wanted really fast, we were going to have problems.
Yeah. Well, when you're frustrated, it's like Alzheimer's or not, when we're frustrated and we don't feel like the person we're dealing with is working very hard to fix the frustration or solve the problem that's frustrating us. It just makes that worse. So
It
I
does.
understand that. One of the
It does.
programs that I teach with the Alzheimer's Association, they were talking about, like really taking time to get like get to know your person, but to like remember your person and to think about like
Mhm.
what their core beliefs are, their
Yes.
likes and their dislikes, like what might trigger them, like really, take
Mhm.
some time and, sit down when it's quiet. Hopefully you can find a little bit of time for that and really
Mhm.
kind of drill down on like who they are, what they feel and think, because that will help you get into their reality. It'll help you kind of figure out what they're trying to tell you when, a behavior is popping up, like you said, she'd get a little short. You would understand it's because, she's just frustrated because she
Right.
wants a snack and I can't figure out which one. And
Yeah, she
I
did
really
like me, looked at me like I'm an idiot because I didn't know what it was she wanted, and I
she
feel
told
like an
you.
idiot. And I'm
The
like,
thing is,
yeah, because she wouldn't, with Alzheimer's, they start to say something, and the word starts off on this side, but by the time it gets down to the mouth, it comes out as a different word. Well, in her brain, she said the original word, and she doesn't know what my problem is because I can't hear and understand what she's saying. And so I just apologize. And that's something that caregivers need to do too, because I would just go, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not understanding. Is this what you want? And just keep trying. Show them something different. I'm trying to figure out what you want. Is it sweet? Is it candy? And don't ask question after question. Oh my goodness. I heard a lady talking to her dad. Would you want a cookie or would you rather have pie? Would you like a piece of cake? How about some pudding? Would you like that? And I was like, oh my gosh. I wanted to just go, stop, but I just walked over and said, I think we should probably try one question at a time and then pause, wait, give him a chance to process what you said, to interpret the words and their meaning, and then to decide on his response. This takes time. It's a lot that our brains do in a flash when they're healthy and normal. The whole process is greatly slows down with any form of dementia.
even with a healthy, normal brain like ours, hopefully we qualify as healthy and normal.
I hope. I don't know.
I'm trying. So my daily goal is
Most days.
is to maintain brain health, not just for the dog, but mostly mine.
Same here.
Sometimes my husband will ask me a question and, I'll pause and think about like, because sometimes it's like, do you want to do X or Y? And it's like, and I try to avoid with, well, I don't really care either way, because that's not really an answer. It is, but it isn't. And so I'll think about, or, and sometimes he jumps in there and it's like, just
Yeah.
zip it.
Yeah.
I'm
Give me a minute.
processing, like, give me more than
Mhm.
15 seconds to process how much I really care about this option and
Mhm.
what else is happening around. It's like there's a lot going on. I think we just all need to like slow down a little bit, especially if we're
Right.
caring for somebody that's got a brain disease, because there
Absolutely.
I always refer to, like having some form of dementia is like having a really old computer. It turns on, it'll get the emails, but it might not stream a video so well, might not do a Zoom thing very well. It just
Mhm.
the modern stuff, it just might not work so well, but it'll do some of the basics. You just got to
Right.
give it a little time and maybe a little thump with the monitor.
No, don't thump.
I don't know if that would help on mine because it's pretty skinny, but anyway. Yeah, it's hard, there's so many things we need to do. It's hard to like slow down and be
It
patient
is.
because you're thinking
Exactly.
it's like time is ticking.
I got 100 things to get done today. Let's go. Yeah, exactly. And it's like that was one of the very biggest challenges for me because I'm a quick, fast, in a hurry, let's get it done. And I had to let go of that totally. And it was so hard.
Yep.
And especially with mom and my mother-in-law. And I'm trying to get the two of them to get into the grocery store. And then I have to tell them, okay, I had them both put one hand on the basket and keep one hand on the basket while we walk through the store because Otherwise, they wander off somewhere, and while you go to get one, you lose the other one, and it's a nightmare. So
Yeah, I get
anyway,
groceries delivered, and I always recommend that for caregivers. And I get a little bit frustrated when people, well, I want to pick out my own fruit. I'm like, you know what? It's their job to pick out the right stuff, to get what's on your
mm,
list, to substitute appropriately, which you can tell them, if you don't have X, give me Y. And
yeah,
you can also leave notes for the shopper. Like I was having to tell them, like, hey, the banana's got to last all week. Don't give me like 7 ripe.
yeah.
And it's,
Well, and this was when I was doing the two of them. It was about 10 years ago, I guess.
oh.
So it wasn't readily available, and so I had to. I didn't. I sort of say I had to go out and do it, but I didn't. Honestly, I could have enlisted help from someone else, but that would have required me asking for help and, admitting that I can't do it on my own and all those other things that we don't like to say.
Yeah,
I should have.
somehow 2 older women at the grocery store is not quite as easy as maybe twin toddlers, which is definitely
It,
not easy. At least
yeah,
them you could
no,
put in the cart.
that's what I was going to say. You can stick them in the cart and keep them there. But and plus, they can reach everything. They just pull stuff and they're sticking stuff in the basket right and left. And I'm trying to take stuff out. And then this other lady is like, giving me this evil look because I took it back out of the basket that they put in, like I'm being mean and not letting them have it. And it's like, if they have diabetes, you don't buy them candy.
Really? Well, why didn't you ask for help? Because that sounds like a nightmare. I would take my mom, not to the grocery store, but we would go to like the drugstore because she would need personal supplies. And I would try to get her to push the cart and I would like guide it from the front so she didn't run over me. And even that was enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes I one of my favorite pictures, and this was pre-pandemic, so it's especially a favorite, is she's holding a package of toilet paper, and she's got her chin on top of it, and she's giving me this goofy look, and it brings back a lot of funny memories. And then,
That's
when
good.
you couldn't get toilet paper during the pandemic, or I liked looking at that picture. But yeah, why didn't you ask
Yeah.
for help?
Well, I finally did. It took me a long time, but I finally thought that, well, this is an easier way to do it. I talked to my brother and I said, how about if I drop them off, start a movie, and that way they just watch a movie at your house while I go get groceries. And he said, sure, that's fine, no problem. He said, I'm just going to be working in the garage anyway. And I said, well, you got to keep an eye on them because my little mother-in-law is a wanderer. Now, mom will sit. She won't get out of her recliner. She's going to sit there and holler at you to go get her another drink. She's not going to move. My little mother-in-law gets off, gets up, gets out, motors off, and she's gone, which is exactly what happened. I came back. I see my brother out in the front yard looking around frantically, and I knew immediately what happened. He lost her. so so we're quickly combing the streets and looking around, and she was on the next street over in the neighbor's backyard.
Oh my goodness.
She opened the gate and went in, and thankfully the little neighbor saw me walking down the street and kind of not yelling, but kind of yelling, her name. And she said, "Hey, is this who you're looking for?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, yes." And she said, "Well, something's wrong." She couldn't tell me her name, and I said, "Yeah, she's got Alzheimer's." And I said, she snuck out and took off." So anyway, she was relieved, and so she had to call and cancel the police that she had called to come out. I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah, it's definitely wise. I don't know about a block over, but it's definitely wise to let your neighbors know that your loved one has some form of dementia
Yes.
because I do
Yeah.
state advocacy, at Sacramento, and one of our legislators had an older woman living next door who definitely had some form of dementia and ended up in their backyard trying to get in the house through the sliding glass door. Now we're talking about a state representative here, a state
Mhm.
legislator, and she's got teenagers at home, and our political climate is not exactly calm, to say the least.
Mhm.
it would have been very easy for that situation to go very, very badly. Now, thankfully, they knew her. They were kind of aware that there was an issue, and so
Mhm.
it ended up fine. But if they
Yeah,
hadn't,
and that's exactly right though. And see, they did in my neighborhood, everybody knew because I had talked to them and they'd see us out on walks and they'd see us going around and stuff. But I took her over to my brother's and dropped her off. And so, and it was a learning experience. He never did that again. He learned. It scared him to death too. He thought, "Oh my gosh, you trusted me for 1 hour and I lost her."
that reminds me of the time there was four adults. Was there four or five of us? My daughter was like 2.5, and we went to some sort of fair art festival that the city put on. It wasn't like a carnival. It wasn't rides or anything, but the whole downtown city park was fenced off. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go over here and look at this booth." So I went left. The rest of the family went straight, or what? I don't know. I don't know how four grown adults lost dang 2-year-old, but we did.
Gosh. Oh,
And I kept thinking she couldn't get out of the park because it's got a 6-foot chain link fence all the way around it. But by the time you get from the south point to the north point and you haven't seen this 2.5-year-old, then you're thinking that somebody scooped her up and ran off with her. And
right.
fortunately, somebody, a Rotarian in a different club than my dad, spotted her, realized this kid shouldn't be by herself, and
Well,
put her on the golf cart to head to like the where the sound system was. In hindsight, I really wish he had just stood still for a minute because whisking her
right.
away made it worse. But
Yes.
it all ended fine. But yeah, it's like, man, that 10 or so minutes of panic is
So scary. It's
yeah.
so scary because your mind just races to every possible horrible thing that can happen to them. And it's very scary.
So do you have any advice for how to deal with somebody that wanders? Because I did not have that problem. And I don't think we've talked about it enough on the show. So if you have
Yeah,
tips, that would be great.
I do. I do. I do. We'll change direction, not a problem. So, yeah, the things that they say online are to put a latch up high on the door because a lot of people, like my mother, would just look at the floor and she looked down. My mother-in-law was not that way. She looked up a lot and she had Alzheimer's. So I put the latch up high on the door and she pushed a chair over to it, climbed up on the chair and unlocked the door, which scared me to death because she's going to break a hip. And that was especially scary because she liked to wander between 2 and 3 a.m.
Lord.
That's when she would get up and just take off. And so, you're sound asleep and you hear that front doorbell chime, and I'm like, how did she get out? We have the latch on there and the deadbolt and the lock, but she could do both of those really quick. And so anyway, she was just scooting down the road. So I got her back in. It's like, okay, that's not going to work. Then, another thing that they suggest a lot of times, and this one's kind of controversial, is to put a black rug in front of the door because their brain oftentimes interprets it as a hole.
Yep.
And so then they won't step across it. They'll often just stop. And then I had somebody say, well, you're controlling them by fear and that's emotional blackmail and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just trying to protect her. So anyway, so whatever you do with that one. And if you do that, you got to remember to move the black rug when you're getting ready to take them out somewhere because they won't go. You can't get them up past the rug. And another thing that you can do is to camouflage the front door. And I did that in a couple of different ways. I just put that, well, I painted the door the same color as the trim and the wall. That way it's hard to see. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy for us to see, but it's not easy for someone with any form of dementia to see because it's very difficult for them to differentiate colors. And so I painted them all the same color and then I hung a picture in the middle of the door. So it
Oh.
just looked like a piece of the wall. And so then that helped a whole lot for her with quite a while. But I mean, I talked to a gentleman who I was like, oh my gosh, he nailed down all the windows in his house.
Oof.
And I was like, that's a fire hazard. You can't, what if you have a fire and you have to get out? And he's like, well, I had to keep her in. She was climbing out all the windows. and she would always climb out the window. And I talked to him and I'm like, no. And so what we did in his case is we put a screw through the casing about, about this high up and stuck a screw through there, which is still not a great thing because you can't get out the window, but it was better at least. You could get the window open, but you wouldn't be able to climb out. And so he just had a screwdriver there by the window that she normally went out. But it's oh, it's just so scary, and they're all different.
Well, and our laws have not caught up to current, you know, aging issues because legally you're not allowed to keep them locked up.
Yeah, and you have to for their safety.
Exactly.
But so it's yeah, and that's why with my mother-in-law, what I finally wound up doing with her that actually worked was, those flip down door stops, those
Mhm.
metal ones that are on big doors.
Mhm.
I mounted one on the inside of our door and flipped it down. So when you go to pull, you can't open the door because it holds the door shut because it's flipped down. That worked perfect for her because she didn't look down. She looked up. She looked everywhere. And I would just flip it up with my foot when we were getting ready to go out. I wouldn't call attention to it by bending over and lifting it up. But yeah, you flip that thing down and it doesn't matter if the door's unlocked or not. You cannot open it.
And the other tip that I've heard is to like hang a drape over the door.
Yeah, it's hard though because it gets caught in the door and it gets
Yeah.
shut in the door jamb and it's that I tried that. That's why I don't really recommend it so much because it's just hard. The picture mounted on the door with the door painted like the wall worked pretty well.
I can see
Until I had to switch.
that one working really well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And other people hang a mirror on the door. I've seen that before too, where they mount a long mirror on the back of the door.
Hmm.
And so then when they walk over to it, it's like, but see, that wouldn't have worked with my mother-in-law because she always thought that mirrors were someone else. It was never her. And so it would scare her.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't, that didn't work for us. But it worked for this other lady. So, you need all the things out there. You need to hear about all the strategies that people have used and then try them and see what works with your person.
So the one thing I was going to ask, because there's a lot of advice, not to just plop them in front of the TV, which
Exactly.
I understand, but sometimes now I didn't have that situation with my mom because when after my dad died, she was in memory care and
Mm,
she didn't track with TV very much. I remember my aunt, so my mom's younger sister, got really upset because she couldn't find the remote for mom's TV and mom can't watch the TV, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the remote's around here somewhere. And it was
hmm
stuffed in her dresser drawer or something like, something pretty
Oh, yeah.
typical. And I'm like, I think my aunt wanted to watch the TV and just like hang out with mom instead of like actually engage,
Sure.
which my mom probably would have been fine with. It was like a 45-minute drive for my aunt, and my aunt didn't really drive because she's on again, off again, alcoholic. So when we gave her my dad's car, she totaled it.
Oh, no.
And so my mom was the oldest of four, so brother number two, the third child, and my aunt was the youngest. He would bring her, and they would visit. So watching TV wasn't really what they should have been doing. They always visited different times than I did, which was great. But
Mhm.
um,
Well, and it depends again on your person because my mother loved to watch TV. She did not like to go outside. And I love being outside. My mother-in-law loved being outside. And so I could take her outside and we would garden. And then when she got worse, when she couldn't tell the difference between the flowers and the weeds, I quit having her pull weeds. And so she would just sit on the swing. And mom would do that for a little while. So the two of them would sit on the swing in the backyard and look at the birds and watch me working in the garden. That was fantastic. That that gave me that gave me respite. That gave me time for myself. And they were fine. They were both on the swing, just looking around. I could hear them chattering. So they weren't in any danger. They weren't near anything that would hurt them. And it gave me time to unwind and just to be calm and to be in nature. And so that was a really good restorative time for me. But mom would only do that for a little while. And then she wanted to be back in the house and she wanted to watch TV. So I would let her watch a movie and then I'd just sneak in, just get the remote and shut the TV off as soon as the movie went off. And I'm like, okay, it's over. Time to get up and move. Come on, let's go do something else.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I want to see what else is on. Well, it's off, you know.
Yeah, nothing else is on. You almost need that recording that they used to have. I'm going to show our age here. When the
Oh,
TVs went off at like midnight,
yeah.
or they played the Star Spangled Banner. I
Yes.
was barely up then, so but yeah, don't turn on Netflix because dear God, it just goes from one. What's
Yeah. It's never ending.
yeah,
Never ending. And they need that exercise. And they'll sleep better at night. I talk to people who say, well, my loved one doesn't sleep at night. And then as we visit and we go further into it, it's like they take 3 naps in the daytime. Well, no wonder they're not sleeping at night. They're not moving around any and they're just sitting or sleeping. So if you want them to sleep better at night, let's get a little bit of exercise through the day. Plus, it's good for the brain, it's good for the body. And if you want to keep them out of wheelchairs, the main reason they get in wheelchairs is because that front thigh muscle that gets weak from not bending up and down, getting up and down out of a chair, standing and rising. That's important. I mean, even if you sit down, stand up, and do that 10 times, that's great because it'll help keep that muscle stronger so that they don't have to be in a wheelchair.
your hip flexors get really tight. The more you sit,
Yes.
the tighter they get, and then you end up taking shorter steps because you don't have the flexibility, to
Yep.
move your legs through your hip sockets, which is how they work. And then that makes you a bigger fall risk. And yeah,
Yes.
it's unfortunately like I like to read and craft and I like TV shows and stuff. But yeah, I gotta get my 4 mile walk in with the dog or my Peloton
Hmm.
workout, and I go out cycling a lot. Now it's getting warmer again, so that's a regular activity. Just living in the Sierra foothills, this group that I
That's great.
belong to, um, a lot of them love to climb hills. I do not, and they're fast. I'm like, can we have hills or fast? Because I can
Yeah, not
up
both.
with you, but as soon as I slow down to a grind on a hill and you people are racing up and then racing down, and I'm like trying to catch
Yeah,
it, I lose after a while. So it's
I would
a
too.
challenge. But yeah, I use an app called Ride with GPS, and sometimes if there's more climbing than I like, I will edit the route to take out some of the hills. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
also so that I can end up at the coffee shop while they're still there so I can actually visit with people and get to know these people. I've been part of this group for a year and I still don't know very many of them very well because I get to the coffee shop and they're all like, "Well, it's been great." And they're all leaving. It's like, "Oh."
I know.
So, it's
Oh,
it's not that I'm gonna like I can do the hills, but one, I don't want to wreck myself because I'd like to be awake for the rest of Saturday afternoons. But then it's like I need that socializing at the end, so I
right.
cheat a little bit.
Well, a shortcut, that's a good idea. I think that's a good plan. Yeah, cut across because then you do get the socialization. Socialization is important for brain health
Yep.
too, and for us and our loved one. And so that's a thing that I would do is I would pick up a little lady from church and bring her out to the house and let her sit and visit with mom. And that way they just had a great time and it freed me up to be able to go and do something, not leave and go do something, but read a book, take a nap, soak in a hot tub, garden, whatever I wanted to do because again, they were safe, they were right there and they were entertaining each other, which was great because they had some of the most hilarious conversations. Made absolutely no sense.
Yes, I got that with my mom and the other Dianes. Listening to them
Oh,
talk, it was always interesting, and it was always like a relief. Like, oh, thank God, I don't have to be part of this. I can just interject
yes,
every so often. And
yes.
and sometimes I'd say something, and they'd kind of look at me like, "Oh, I guess she's still here." That was always funny. So
Well,
I don't want to keep everybody too long, but I know this has been a great conversation. Do you have one more chaos to calm tip to share before we sign off and threaten to do this for the third time?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think in narrowing it down, I would say this one is a simple one, but it's amazing how many people overlook it. And so when you're getting ready for a bath or to give your loved one a bath, first off, the bathroom needs to be really, really warm. You need to be too warm when you're giving them a bath. Too warm for you. But this is the thing, you need to have all your supplies gathered up. Now, I had a little basket that I kept all my mother-in-law's soaps and lotions and all the things that were just for her. And I kept it in that little basket so that I didn't have to go running around trying to find things. Make sure you have all your supplies together and the room is already toasty warm before you go get your loved one and before you bring them in there. Life will be much simpler if you just do that.
Agreed. I've heard that too. And showering was an issue with my mom. She didn't think she needed help. She did. And
Hmm.
she reached for her clothes in a huff because she was mad because they were helping her. And that's when she slipped and fell and broke her leg. And that's what took her out. The other thing that I've read a lot about, and I think that this was one of the problems with the memory care that she lived in, is that, when you walk into your shower, like the tile, it's all the same. It's like almost
Yeah.
like a sensory deprivation box.
Yes.
And then the water hits you and it can feel like needles
They
on their
can't see it.
skin. Yeah. So it's startling. It can be a little painful. You're lacking any kind of sensory input other than this terrifying thing that's hitting you. Yeah, it's when you understand what they're seeing, this is again going back to their reality, it makes it
Right.
much easier to understand why they are so reluctant. And I ages ago, and maybe I'll try to remember to link it to this episode, but this one gal was caring for her mom and her daughter, and their abilities kind of coalesced together as the mom's disease progressed and she lost abilities, and the daughter got older and more independent. At one point, they were like at at the same
The
mental
same.
level, and
Yes.
she started giving her mom baths, and she said that was so much easier. Now, I don't know too many modern households that getting them in and out of a bathtub is simple, but it's
Oh,
definitely
it's
something.
hard,
Yeah.
but a transfer bench really helps. But even when using the transfer bench, that's hard plastic and it's usually cold. And so I always took a hand towel and laid it across the bench and then had them sit on the bench. And you need the handheld shower, of course, because that's so much easier, whether you're in the tub or the shower, you need the handheld. It's not as scary. They can hold it, let them, you hold it with them to try to control the spray.
Yes, bathroom's not wet.
Oh yeah, I got a shower every time I gave my mother-in-law a shower. I was wet right along with her, but that's okay. We got it clean and we got it done. But it is about understanding that it's startling, they can't see it, and so many, many people just turn the heater on and maybe lay out a towel and then go get their loved one. And then they'll, now you sit right here, stay right here, and let me go find the shampoo. Let me go find, let me go find your lotion and let me go find. No, have it all together, have it hot in there before you get them, and it'll be a whole lot easier. It honestly is well worth your time. It makes a huge difference. I've done it both ways. First way is not fun.
And did you give them showers every day, or because
No,
yeah, we don't need
every
showers.
other day.
Yeah, I think my mom was twice a week, unless
Hmm.
they definitely got soiled from something.
Right.
Don't need to go into details on that one. And
Yeah.
and we're the same way. Like my husband gets busy in the mornings, and he's like, I didn't do anything after work, and like I'm not really dirty. And so there's he's like he made the comment, I'm not showering every single day anymore. And I'm like, I know it's not necessary,
It
especially like
isn't necessary.
we live in a really dry climate, and with the heater going, it's the house is dried. It's like, and as you age, your skin dries out. Yeah, you don't need to just keep exasperating that. So
Right. And it dries your skin so much more. And so, the doctors advise do not take a shower every day. So, no, we did not. We did not. We did every other day and then it just like you said depended. Like if we had a bad accident or something, then of course we're going to have to do more cleanup at that time. But
Yeah. Well, I hope that helps people because I know that's a huge battle. And like I said,
Mm.
um, my mom, that was always the changing clothes. They
Mhm.
changed her shower time to the afternoon once. Though, boy, that was a huge mistake. And once I
Yeah.
explained to them, my mom got to a certain point in the day, and it's like we got back from our little walk yesterday, and it was like it's 3 o'clock. I mean, my hair was dirty. It kind of rained a little bit, and I was like, "What's the point? I'll just wash my
Right.
hair tomorrow."
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I did not die overnight because I didn't take a shower, and I don't think I took a shower Saturday either. So I was like, "Oh wow,
Well, and that's part of it is just relaxing a little bit, giving ourselves a little bit of grace, quit holding this standard that was, really beat into a lot of our heads that you need to take a shower every day. When, like I said, the doctors now say, nope, that's not good for you. I mean, you can wash the smelly parts if you need to, but you don't need a full shower every day.
especially like the way I did, I like really hot water." So
Me too.
I hope that helps people find a little bit more peace in their days and one or two fewer things to do. And I,
Yes.
and I hope part two of From Chaos to Calm has been beneficial. And I really appreciate Debbie coming on. She has one more thing to say.
I forgot. Yeah, I
Oh,
forgot. I have a free gift for your
oh, that's
listeners.
right. We talked about that
Yes.
before we started recording.
Yes. So if they want to go to thepurplevine.com/reduce dash stress, that's thepurplevine.com/reduce dash stress. And then they'll get a list of other things that they can do to cut their stress levels.
And you don't have to remember that. That is linked in the show notes. Just
Yay.
wherever you're listening, scroll down. It should be a hot link and just tap it and it'll take you right there. Unless you're listening to this well into the future, and sometimes those links, even though they're still live on the website, they're not always live on the pod players. So you can always go to my website and grab them there too.